As someone who grew up surrounded by stories of princesses and adventures, I've always been enchanted by the idea of royalty. Specifically, I was intrigued what it felt like to live inside a castle. And never has my dream been more lived than when I visited Germany. Initially a business trip, my sister and I tagged along our parents' conference in Dusseldorf. We would stray off to places like Bremen, where the city center was abound with musicians, or Cologne, where we visited the towering Gothic Cologne Cathedral. However, it was our short cruise on the River Rhine that really took my breath away. Dotting the green landscapes on both sides of the serene waters were castles of all shapes and sizes. From the banks, I could see the 19th century Schloss Drachenberg with its cerulean roofed towers, beige-colored bricks, and golden statues, to the majestic 13th century Schloss Tosenfels that was once in ruins but was luckily rebuilt by Prussian Prince Friedrich Wilhelm and had become the prime epitome of Rhine Romanticism. I took in the breathtaking sight of the medieval Schloss Marksburg that not only sat on a high hilltop but was never once breached in its whole existence as guard of the town it towers over. Further down the stream, Schloss Rheinfels was not as lucky. Another medieval castle, but was now a ruin, it endured wars and sieges throughout the centuries. Passing by the infamous Loreley rock formation, where legend has it a maiden sings and lures men to their deaths, the smallest castle I've ever witnessed, Schloss Pfalzgrafenstein, sat on a separate islet. With its black roofs and white and red bricks, it was a tall castle whose sole purpose was for customs. The final leg of the cruise was another one of my favorites, especially because it held a medieval, but also a very romantic atmosphere, the 13th century Schloss Rheinstein. By the end of it all, I was full on beaming. I could only imagine how some castles once held kings, queens, and of course, princesses who perched by paned windows waiting for their prince. Or who could forget the knights housed in castles waiting for the next battle? Battles that I envisioned involved magic or mythical powers. I could only imagine the sanctums of armory and weapons. My mind just went on and on. I was clearly off in my own fantasy land. I didn't realize it then just how misguided those thoughts were. Hungry for more castle ventures, as I like to call them, I couldn't wait for us to arrive to Munich and tour the Munich residence that once homed Bavarian royalties in no more than 4 centuries. After all, it was my first time to actually ever go inside a royal home. Just off the side of Marienplatz, the residence was built like a castle but surrounded by the structure of a palace. Inside, it was both an explosion of wealth and art. Its infamous antiquarium beheld shiny marbled floors, painted walls and ceilings that was an ode to Renaissance art, and statues and busts proportionally situated in all sides of the hall. It was easily a jaw-dropping room with all its details and finery. The other rooms were not much different. Art from the Renaissance to Baroque to Neoclassicism were all found within its walls. If not art, there was gold in every nook and cranny in any form you can think of. It was everything and even more than what I imagined. It was simply that grand. Yet for the first time, I realized I didn't want to live like the royals did. It was beautiful indeed, but it was just so devoid of warmth. It looked like it was all just for flaunts and show. The princesses from my stories all dreamed to one day live in a castle, but I wondered if they'd still prefer this if they knew what it felt like, compared to their cozy cabin in the woods. Revisiting Deutschland 7 years later, I was still a lover of good fantasies and epic battles, but I was also not blind to life's realities. In other words, I've grown up. Still, that didn't quench my thirst to roam about different castles. And in the 7 years that I've wandered, there has never been a more magnificent castle than that of Bavarian King Ludwig II's infamous home, considered as the fairy tale castle and was the inspiration of the Disney castle itself, Schloss Neuschwanstein. Sitting atop a hill overlooking the Hohenschwangau Valley, the picturesque 19th century White Castle is even more sublime within. Everything was just pure art. A castle the king made in honor of his favorite composer Wilhelm Richard Wagner. Every piece in the alcoves, on the walls, ceilings, grand halls, and rooms depicted scenes and characters from Wagner's many operas, which were mainly centered on the poetic world of the Middle Ages. There were stories of kings and knights, lovers and poets, drawn in emotions full of love, regret, forgiveness, and redemption. Even the littlest details weren't spared. Every plush rug and curtain had a swan motif, a nod to the Christian symbol of purity, among many others. The throne room, which was a wonder of its own, depicted angels and saints painted in the Byzantine style. With all its golden and light colors, it felt like an opening to heaven itself. In all my castle ventures, this was the one that made me cry. Not only because of its grandiose yet unassuming allure, but more so because of the story of its maker. This castle was King Ludwig's fantasy. It was his escape from the trials of being a young king, from losing battles, and from being questioned of his own sexuality. This was his safe haven, and in it, he made his own fairy tale world. In a lot of ways, this castle was the expression of his beautiful, yet melancholic and unseen soul. Castles have been built for centuries, for many reasons, and have been lived by people who had their fair share of life's many trials. In my years of discovering the histories behind each mammoth structure, I have become disillusioned towards my romantic fantasies of kings and queens, of knights and fair maidens. Yet the wonder I have upon seeing a castle is still ever present in my heart. Not to dream and conjure up fantastical adventures, but to learn the lives that have graced their walls, and to simply step into their banal realities, no matter how grim, just for a little while. If you guys enjoyed that, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, comment down below your favorite memory of this place, book that subscribe button, and turn on notifications. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys till our next adventure. Bye!